Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am back with another riveting interview with Tim Netzel. You saw him previously on my channel when we talked about how to freelance. Joke I made then was about Knights of the Round Table with lances and freedom. I don't know. I just like to repeat my jokes, get more bang for my buck. But today we're going to be talking about coaching. You know, the sort where you have the person saying, "Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play." Today we're going to talk about how to be that coach. How to be a coach. Assuming that you haven't seen the other video with Tim, I think it behooves us to actually know who Tim is, because these should be standalone, right? We don't have to rely on a series. So Tim, please introduce yourself to our lovely audience.
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me back, Harry. I have been a full stack developer and designer for about 14 years professionally. And I've also been freelancing for the past 5 years, for about 2.5 of those as kind of a side hustle, and for the last 2.5 full time. And recently I have started coaching developers on how to go freelance. So, we talked in our last video about the freelancing side of things, and today we'll talk a little bit about the coaching side.
I am excited. I love coaches. I probably steal the most metaphors from coaches in my day-to-day life as a manager, because I find those similarities to be, I wish there was a non-sports analogy to coaching, but I feel like that's in the word. I don't know if there is like another, I don't know. That's a individual philosophical pursuit that I have no answer to, but I always try to find one. So first things first, the question of now is what is the heck is coaching?
Yeah, so I really think about coaching as helping somebody learn and grow towards a goal by providing them with a combination of training and guidance. So hopefully that's nice. Yeah, that's nice and succinct. But the difference between coaching and consulting or freelancing, right, is that you're not doing it for them, right?
Okay.
And you're not even doing it with them, right? With coaching, you're helping them do it themselves, right? It's much more the teach a man to fish sort of philosophy. And you're doing that, by providing them kind of two things, right? That first half is training, right? So here's concrete steps and resources on how to do something, right? Like if that's like technical, you're like, okay, here's lessons around coding, right?
Yep.
Or like, let me go through your code with you and give you feedback, right? But there's also, another aspect to this, which is guidance that may not be sort of specific to the subject matter, but is much more about how the person who's being coached feels and their mindset, right? So, I think one thing, for example, that developers struggle a lot with in a who are newer to their careers is this sort of like feeling of imposter syndrome, right? Like, I'm not a real developer yet. And so if you were coaching someone on the technical aspects of things, like part of what you do wouldn't just be technical, it'd also be, helping new developers sort of overcome those fears, and helping them navigate the situations that might trigger those fears. Things like, oh, well, like, I'm not sure how to complete this task, which is something that happens to all developers all the time, right? Like even extremely experienced ones. And sometimes the solution to that is like, go look at Stack Overflow. And sometimes the solution is like, well, here's how you have a conversation with your team or your boss or whatever, about the technical challenges that you're facing, so that you can get help without feeling embarrassed about it, or like, you're an idiot or you're not a competent professional, because none of those things are true.
Right. Yeah. So it's, you know, enabling someone to be their own, to find the success themselves without you having to necessarily hand deliver it to them.
Exactly.
So then I imagine there's different ways of accomplishing this, different ways of coaching.
Yeah, I think, you know, when I think about the types of coaching, I kind of think about two different aspects of that. One of them is the structure, right? Like, is it one-on-one? Is it group coaching? Is it cohort based?
Oh, interesting.
And
Group
then
coaching. Okay.
yeah, and then the other is sort of the subject matter and methodology focuses, right? So like, you know, for developers, right? Like, are you coaching around a specific programming language, or like I do, are you coaching around something that might enhance a developer's life, like, you know, how to go freelance. But then there's also like the methodology, right? Like, you know, are you more like a teacher, or are you more like a therapist? And you know, that typically coaches exist on kind of a spectrum as far as that goes, right? Where
Both
some,
appropriate though, right? For certain
right,
situations. Yeah.
right, right. Like some coaches really have like a very clearly delineated program. Like, here are the, like, you know, over the course of the next 8 sessions, we're going to go through like these 8 major topics, and like, I'm going to give you homework ahead of time and whatever, right? Like, that's on one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum is like, all right, like, you're going to show up when you need to. Like, you'll just book something with your coach, and the two of you are just going to have like a you know, very unscripted heart-to-heart conversation. Typically, I've found that the most effective programs tend to be the ones that are kind of in the middle, right?
Mhm.
Where there's a component that's sort of curriculum based, to help people with the technical skills that they need to learn, whether those are, you know, technical in the sense of code, or technical in the sense of like, here's the, you know, set of things you need to know to do freelance sales, for example. But then the other half helps them overcome sort of the mindset issues that they might be having.
Yeah, yeah. Balancing between having concrete things to do, but then also figuring out how to make sure that the process there is smooth as well.
Exactly. And also that the person is equipped to go out into the world after they're done being coached and succeed, right? Because it's not just about like, do I understand, you know, how to do these steps? It's also like, do I have the confidence and the tools necessary to get myself unstuck when I get stuck? Because, you know, they're gonna get stuck, right? Like, that's just the nature of life, right? Like, you are going along on your merry way, and then something happens and you're like, well, shit, what do I do now? And, you know, when you're new, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by that. I think one of the key jobs of a coach is to help the people that they're coaching not feel that overwhelmed, and have tools to overcome it.
In some ways, that's the exit exam. Can you keep that momentum from the coaching into your own individual travails?
Right.
Very cool. So the question that leads me to next, because I'm always curious about giving back myself things that I've learned or unlearned, whatever, is like, should I coach, or to project to the audience, should a person coach?
Yeah. And you know, I think that is an important question to ask yourself, but there's a couple of things that can help point you in the right direction, right? Like, the first one is, do you care about helping people? Because if the answer is no, like, and that's, you know, like as much as like that sounds like something that everyone should say yes to, like, maybe you just want to code, right? And if you just want to code, like, there's nothing wrong with that. You should just code, right? But
be
like,
honest with yourself.
Be honest with yourself about it. But if, on the other hand, like, it actually brings you a sense of joy to like spend time, in this case with other developers, helping them through either technical challenges or career challenges or whatever it is, that's a good indicator that you'd be a good fit as a coach, right? I think, a second question is like, do you have something to offer? And if you've been doing this even for like a year, you have something to offer, right, to somebody. And like, if you think about like when you were a new developer, chances are a lot of the help that you got wasn't from like your boss or some senior programmer. It was from somebody who had been doing the job for, 6 months to 2 years longer than you.
Yeah,
And so like if you're in that position, then you have something to offer, right? Maybe not as much, if you will, at which it's arbitrary, but like maybe not as much as someone who's been doing this for 10 or 20 years, but actually maybe just as much because you've got a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody who's been doing this for 20 years probably doesn't remember super well what it's like to struggle with certain concepts, and you do, because you've been doing this recently, which means you're going to be better equipped to help people overcome a specific set of challenges. And so, I think those are some things to sort of think about in terms of like, should you coach? But they should also like kind of help guide what your coaching would consist of if you decide to go in that direction.
I truly love that even if you've been coding for just a year, you still have knowledge gained, you still have insights accrued. That you're absolutely correct. Like the longer you're in the industry, the further apart you are from your inception into the industry. Horrible word. And like just becomes harder to give that insight. So I do that was awesome. So then I guess the next question then, after you've had that year of experience and you know how to install Node, which I've forgotten. I have to remember every time I do that because I just don't ever get on your computer. But like, what are some initial big challenges that you have to face when beginning to coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think like anything else, it's hard work, right? And like we've already talked about, you're not just teaching skills, you're also teaching mindset, right? And so I think there's kind of two discrete sets of challenges as far as like the material goes, right? Like or like what's going to happen while you're coaching, and that is like making sure that your sort of program is structured in a way that is specific enough that like people feel like they're on a path to success, but not so specific that it doesn't account for the fact that everybody's an individual. Right. And so like this shouldn't feel like just some sort of like paint by numbers experience. Like you want to allow for the fact that some people are going to struggle with certain things that other people are going to find easy. And those other people will struggle with something else, just from a technical standpoint. And then the other part of that is figuring out how to get people to speak candidly and frankly about their fears, right? Like what's really keeping them up at night, or what are they worried about that's going to prevent them from taking the next step, and figuring out based on those things how to help them improve their mindset and help them develop tools to respond to those fears appropriately. So I think that's one big sort of bucket of challenge. And then the other one is, sort of the sales and marketing aspect of it, right? Like how do you find people to coach? And how do you convince them to pay you to do it? So I think that's the other thing that you've got to think about. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a moment in terms of like, okay, how do you actually go about that? But those are the two things that you're really going to want to be prepared for and have a plan for when you get started.
Yeah, I mean, Bob Ross is successful, but he also wasn't really trying to, it was TV. So much as you want to paint by numbers, sometimes you have to blur the lines.
Right.
Which is another song that's also a weird reference. Okay, my mind makes strange connections, and I wish it would stop. But I mean, speaking about finding people to coach, and then getting showing the proof of value that you have to share with them, um, uh, especially making it into a job. Like, what does that look like? Like, how much can you, like, how do you do that? How do you make money off of that? Like, what is that? What does it look like as a profession?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think like as a profession, you really need like a couple of things, right? Like effectively, you need a way to meet clients and a way to convince them that you're a good fit. And I think the meeting clients is actually relatively straightforward, maybe even more straightforward than it would be with freelancing. But you'll use a lot of of similar techniques to the ones we talked about on our last video. So like developer meetups, I think, are a great way to meet potential clients because oftentimes a large portion of the folks who show up are people who are just getting started. And some of them might want help. And so like whether it's just like talking to folks who are there or presenting in front of the group and mentioning that you offer coaching, that's a great way to do it. Certainly if you're interested in doing something like blogging or starting a YouTube channel, you can do something like that. But really, like, you just need a way to have one-on-one conversations with people, and sort of let them know that you're available. Like a lot of coaches will work on things like list building, building an email list, and providing like portions of their teachings to their list as a way to attract people and have additional conversations. But honestly, my advice here is don't overcomplicate it. Really just like get in front of people and let them know what you've got. And if you've got something to share, people who want it will opt in. And then, I think the second part of that question was how much you can earn. And really it depends a bit on your structure, right? I've seen coaches charge as little as $50 per session. I've seen folks who are much more focused on like sales and marketing, or like, here's how to be CTO or something like that, like charge $1,000 or more per session. And so there's obviously like a huge spectrum. If you're coaching programming, right, like the technical skills around programming, I think you can expect to earn in sort of the $50 to $150 an hour range for that coaching. So think about it as roughly speaking, similar to what you might earn doing the active development in the US. And if you're coaching things that are more around like sales or marketing, you can expect to earn more because those things obviously have a lot more to do with like how other people make money. But that's like roughly speaking what I've seen folks charge. And then typically, like, in addition to like how experienced you are, a few other things that will impact the sort of prices are how personalized it is, whether it's one-on-one or group, right? Like, so if it's much less personalized and you're spending less time one-on-one with people, you'll probably end up charging a bit less, but you'll also be able to reach more people because you're not, just doing one-on-one, which doesn't scale as well.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I have to have those $1,000 rates, but I'm not there yet. I've got a few more years till I can get there.
Yeah, and most people aren't, right? Like, I'm not charging $1,000 per hour.
A boy can dream.
Yeah, but if you were CTO of a Fortune 500 company and you're mentoring people who are VP level programmers, right, or VP level developers at other large companies who want to be CTOs, then you might charge that much, right? But for the rest of us, you're going to be lower on that spectrum.
Yeah, I like that comparison that more in line with what you'd expect for just doing a freelance job. That makes a lot of sense. Also, viewers, I don't know if you noticed, but my camera changed because it completely froze up and I need to get a new camera. It's not built for streaming. So thanks, Tim, for not getting distracted from my frozen face on the screen. Live content.
I was a little bit worried that was my computer freezing up, but I'm glad we're good.
The joys of internet and bandwidth, where you don't know if it's you or the
yeah, exactly.
That was awesome. Very, very, very awesome. Any other notes before we go?
Yeah, I think, just the last thing that I would really reiterate is that if you feel like you've got something to share or a way that you can be helpful to people, just start putting yourself out there, right? And one of the things that I do, I mentioned this in the last session on freelancing, and I've been doing it for much longer than I've been charging for coaching, is I do free strategy sessions with folks. And they're typically 45 minutes to an hour long, and basically I get a chance to get to know people and hear what they're struggling with, and provide some free advice. And then if we hit it off and they feel like they need it, then we talk about the potential of doing more, right? Like of having a long-term relationship where I coach them. And if you're considering coaching, what I'd say is start there. Just give away some of your time for free, because it's also going to be tremendously valuable for you to sort of learn about what people are struggling with and how they talk about it, how they feel about it, like the nuances. And that'll help guide you in terms of like creating your program, figuring out like things like how much you charge, all of that kind of stuff. But it's also a good way to give back to folks and provide something of value and sort of pay it forward.
Wonderful, beautiful. Tim, thank you so much again. Always so generous with your time and insights. So thank you so much.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. That is the video for this week. Hopefully you enjoyed, and you can now coach yourself to watch another of my videos, I guess. I don't know. But if you're not a subscriber, to become one so that you can coach yourself to subscribe to, I don't know, I'm just gonna keep the same words. But thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next video. That'll happen in the following time that you see a video appear on my channel. And until then, stay happy, stay good. Till then, God, so many till ends. Catch you in the next one.